Hello all, welcome to the Engthink channel. In today's video, let's discuss about the E07 that is related for the error that could happen in any of your e-bike vehicle or e-bike or scooter that is related to the motor, right? So first of all, let me inform to you what I'm having here is my test bench of e-bike or electrical vehicle. Basically, what I'm having here is a throttle, battery pack, e-bike display, motor controller, and the motor. This is the most common setup that you could have in your e-bike or scooter. In some cases, you could have some more simple version of the e-bike display, or could have nothing have the throttle. This could be changed, but the most important thing is related to the motor controller and also the motor, right? So what I'm going to show to you is how to troubleshooting the E07, that is a motor issue. So let's try to understand first what is the connection that we have here between the motor and the motor controller and the information that will be displayed in your e-bike display. I'm having here the S866. This is the most common e-bike display that could have a lot of function. You can set up some configuration and as well have the information of the errors of your e-bike. So basically the connection that we have here is through this cable right here. In most of the cases you have a short cable, and after you have some adapter because the connector, as you can see, is a little bit different that is going to the motor controller, right? So one thing that you need to check, because the error is related to the motor, is how is the current state of the pins of the connector. As you can see, the connector have 3 pins that's a little bit longer than the others, and as well is a little bit wide than the others. That is because there is 3 phases that is responsible for send the power to the motor, and this is by these 3 biggest pins of the connector. And after this we have more 6 pins that is related to the Hall sensors. Basically the Hall sensors have the function to inform to the motor controller the real position of the motor, right? So this one is a BLDC. This is brushless DC motor, and this is powered by DC voltage that is coming from a battery, right? And this is controlled by this motor controller right here. So the power will come by these 3 big pins, and the information of the position that is important to the motor controller send the correct power to the windings of the BLDC motor. So that's why we have these 6 pins that is related to the Hall effect sensors, right? So to make the connection, you need to see as well the arrow that will indicate the correct connection that you need to do. So the first inspection, you need to check the pins, right? So make the connect again. This connector is waterproof, usually because this cable usually will stay in some exposure area of your e-bike, so need to be waterproof. So that's why this such of connector. And then here we have a separation of the 3 pins of the motor face and as well the other 6 pins. But important detail that is, despite of have 6 pins, only 5 are used, right? As you can see, we have all the cables in this connector, but in connector that goes to the controller, you can see that one is not connected, right? So basically this is the 3 phases that goes to the motor and send the power, and in the other connector we have the Hall effect sensors. That is like this one. We have inside the motor, we have this PCB with 3 Hall effect sensors. And as well, as you can see, we have 5 wires. So basically, we are having here 2 wires for power, the 3 Hall effect sensors, right? That is by the red wire and black wire. Red wire is the positive. And as well, we have the outputs from the motor to the controller that is related for the Hall effect sensors. So basically, we have the yellow, the blue, and the green. That is the same colors of the phase. So each Hall effect sensors have a related phase. So as you can see, we have the inscription here, ABC, and also the positive and the negative of the Hall effect sensors, right? So one important thing is that here we have a low voltage, usually 5 volts DC, and here you have a voltage that is sending by the motor controller. That is usually the voltage that is the motor works. So each motor have a characteristic of have a specific voltage. So for this one, we have 48 volts, but you can have 24, 32, or 60 volts. This is also common voltage that you can find, right? Okay, so regarding for the error, as you can see, if you power up your e-bike display and appears in your display E07, so as I told you before, is related to the motor, so could be damage of one of these Hall effect sensors, or maybe could be some connector in fail. For example, the pins here could be oxidated, or here as well, because this one usually will stay inside some enclosure e-bike, but could be get some moisture and start to be oxidated, or maybe you can have some damage in the cable, especially because this cable will be outside in your e-bike. So need to check how the state of the cable. And here, as I told you, we have these 5 wires. Maybe could have one of these wires damaged, or some of the sensors is in fault. So in case that you have the issue in the motor, you can replace individually the sensor. You can purchase only the sensor, or you can purchase the PCB. That is also a good option as well, right? So to test this, you can use one of this tester right here that I'm having here. This tester is very interesting because you can see the state of each of the Hall effect sensors, right? And as well, we have the same connector, so it will be more easy instead of use the multimeter to make the connections, all right? So let's do this test. First of all, let's disconnect the power, right? For the battery, for safety reasons, okay? Then we will disconnect the controller and make the connection with the tester. As you can see, you have the information right here. We have the controller Hall lines and have motor Hall lines. So first of all, we can make a self-test of the tester. So this is, you can connect the both connectors right here and as well turn on. And as a result, you have some similar behavior of the connector to the motor. So basically what happened here, there is a signal sent by this controller Hall lines, will send it to the motor Hall lines. So we have this indication what expected when you run the motor by this connector here, right? So with this test, we can ensure that all the LEDs is working and they are blinking, everything is fine to make the test with the motor. So let's disconnect back here. Let's connect to the motor, right? Important check, motor Hall lines, right? This is the correct. But no problem, because if you see the connector will not match, right? So we need to have the correct connector, otherwise you cannot use. And finally, we have the indication of one of the Hall effect sensor that is inside the motor is on, right? So the Hall effect sensor will works with magnets. Basically, we have this motor here, a lot of magnets outside, and inside we have the motor windings. That is the coil, copper coils that is in the center, in the stator, and outside we have the rotor, right? So this motor is a Outrunner motor and will spin in the outside. So the center, where is the axle, will be fixed, okay? So in this case that you run the motor, you can see that the Hall sensors will be blinking. That is because they have some difference between them. Usually this difference is around 120 degrees. So the difference of angle of these three have 120 degrees. This is the most standard for all BLDC motors, okay? So as you can see, the Hall effect is working properly. We don't have any problem, because all we have this blinking LED here. So there is no problem right here. So there is no problem. What happened here is because I just try to run the motor with this connector outside the controller. So then the controller will detect that the Hall effect sensor is not properly connected, and then we will inform the Error 07. So basically I simulate this issue running the motor without the Hall effect sensor. So in case that you power up and you still have the E07, check the connection, make it back, and you can try to run the motor if it's possible. In this case, if you run the motor, you see the error will disappear, right? One important thing is regarding the movement, if forward or backward or the motor, right? Because in case that you have some fail here, maybe your e-bike will start to running in reverse. So there is one function in the motor controller that is the self-study, right? So when you short the self-study, the motor will spin for the first time, and you can check the direction of the movement. If the direction is not right, you disconnect and connect back again, and the motor will spin to the other side. So when is the correct, you just disconnect and keep this disconnected, because this is the proper movement that your bike needs to do, that is for forward, okay? So that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoy regarding for the E07, that is an error related to the Hall effect sensors. And usually could be any Hall effect damage, or PCB oxidated, some damage in cables, or some bad contacts by this connector here or this other right here. So in case that you lost the cable for some damage, you can replace it. So you can purchase only the cable. It's important check the size of the cable. Because some e-bikes have the controller with different distance of the motor, so you need to take care of that. And if in this case you also need to purchase a new one or try to make some repair, But for this case, you need to disassemble the motor and replace all the cable. Okay? So that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed this set of content and see you in the next video.